You're in the place where mysteries and the missing meet, where conspiracies lurk around every corner. Welcome to the Deep, Dark Truth.
Greetings, truth seekers, and welcome back to the Deep, Dark Truth. Just because Halloween is over doesn't mean we can't still get spooky. So today we'll be talking about play-at-home rituals and their origins, like Bloody Mary and the Ouija board, as well as listening to a few submissions from our listeners. I'm Mo.
I'm Chip.
I'm Mikey.
So, rituals like Bloody Mary, Light as a Feather, and Ouija board games are so ingrained in pop culture that they have become part of the Girl's Guide to Slumber Parties 101. But do they work? Today, we'll be trying to answer that question for ourselves and figure out just how these rituals became so ingrained in our culture. So, right off the bat, guys, have you guys did any of these rituals or played any parlor-type games?
I have done Bloody Mary with my cousins. I don't think it's correct because you're supposed to be alone when you do it. There was like 9 of us in one little bathroom in Grandma's house.
I can picture that exact scenario. When I was a kid, we used to do it whenever we went camping. So we'd go to the K-Way up in Port Huron, and there would be same thing, like 10 of us crammed in the bathroom in a public campground. Just fucking with the lights.
Screaming, right?
Screaming and fucking with the lights. And it was honestly some of the best times I remember. It's why I think I love camping so much, is because we would do all kinds of pranks. Even the adults, they would put like $100 bills on strings and put them in front of the bathroom and wait for somebody to grab them and then pull them. Fake dog crap. As soon as you walk into the bathroom, just all kinds of ridiculous things. But I've played a lot of Bloody Mary. I've played with a Ouija board quite a few times.
Same.
And one of the things that we're going to be talking about is 4 doors or doors to the mind or red door, yellow door, which me and Chip have actually did together.
That's all I've done. I didn't do any of the
None
others
of
as a
them?
kid. None of them.
Did you go to any sleepovers?
Certainly not like camp sleepovers or camping, but even the regular sleepovers, nah.
No Light as a Feather? I feel like you were deprived. I'm actually really surprised just with, like, background of, like, your mom being very into various spiritual type things.
Mom wasn't gonna be doing Ouija boards, though.
No, but
like,
I feel like Light as a Feather...
I did tarot cards as a kid. I knew how to do tarot cards.
Tarot cards, learning to do
Okay,
tarot
then.
cards as a kid, I feel like that definitely counts. Especially because there's many different ways to do tarot cards, and some of them involve invoking spirits for guidance and things. So I feel like that tarot cards are definitely a parlor game.
Agreed.
Do you know any of the history behind any of the games?
I know quite a bit about Bloody Mary.
Only what you wrote in that
Yeah,
down.
I know quite a bit about Bloody Mary. Like, there's different origins, obviously, but I think it first started with a girl was supposed to walk backwards on the stairs with a hand mirror.
Yes.
Up the flight of stairs.
Yes.
And it would show her future husband.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
right?
literally exactly what it is.
No.
And there's a lot of, like, Who Will I Marry games because it, I guess, was the most, like, the very most important thing that could ever happen to you is who you were going to marry for a long period of time, as far as women's history goes. And so a lot of the divination games and parlor games are all centered around who am I going to marry and or am I going to be rich? It's like MASH.
Right.
Do you remember playing MASH in school? It's like, this is what my house is going to be. What is it? Marriage, something, house. But MASH stood for something that I can't remember.
I think it's the housing. It's mansion, apartment, shack, and house.
Oh, that's exactly what it is.
It's the housing. Yeah.
What was the other thing?
There was 8 different categories,
Yeah.
but that was the first category, so that's why it was called MASH.
Oh my gosh, you have such a great memory.
I know, it's crazy. I could probably do it right now.
Really? I could make a fortune teller right now, like the origami fortune tellers.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Filled with useless knowledge.
Live on your podcast, we're gonna play MASH.
Alright, give me 4 boys' names and 4 girls' names. I'm out. so this is the first time I get to do this.
Right.
I'm so excited.
It's totally changed, hasn't it?
It has. Oh my god, there's so many more possibilities. I could be married to Jennifer Aniston. You just don't know. Well, a lot of parlor games that we're still playing today came up in the middle of the 19th century when spiritualism gained a lot of traction with the Fox sisters and even Mary Todd Lincoln, who organizes seances in the White House. When I was in high school, I actually did a paper on Mary Todd Lincoln specifically because I found this out about her.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I thought it was so interesting. Well, one of her sons, or maybe two of her sons, had died. And so she would do seances in the house. And then after Lincoln died, she had a spiritualist photographer take a photograph of her. And that photograph became infamous because it appeared to show Abraham Lincoln's ghost.
I was aware of the photo.
Yeah, so while the photo has been dismissed since then as a double exposure, it should be noted that allegedly Mary Todd Lincoln went to the photographer under the alias of Mrs. Toondle, so they shouldn't have known. But then again, she was the First Lady of the United States.
Right.
But there wasn't a whole lot of photography at the time. Like, if you see the photography of her, I think she would have looked much different in person. There was no TV.
Right.
So the pictures of her would have been few and far in between, but still, she was a First Lady of the United States. I think that they probably maybe would have recognized her.
Also, where did she have the photograph taken in the White House? Because even a cover name isn't gonna...
So it was after Abraham Lincoln got assassinated, so I'm pretty sure...
Yeah, I got that, thank you.
I'm pretty sure she wasn't even in the White House anymore, because he wasn't president anymore.
Right.
So she would have had to move.
I wonder how quickly they kick you out.
I'm interested in that, too.
Immediately. They're like, the funeral was 6 hours ago, and you're here on taxpayer money. And she was notoriously bad with money. That's an interesting thing.
You mean throwing seances every other day in the White House isn't a good use of taxpayer money?
I mean, she probably made her own dip and stuff.
I didn't know I had so much in common with Mary Todd Lincoln.
I think it's amazing. There's actually, like, a lot of other presidents have said that they have seen or heard Lincoln's ghost since then, which is interesting. So Lincoln's ghost would go on to be known as the White House ghost, and many claim that he's still there today. Eleanor Roosevelt and various former press secretaries have claimed that they have felt the presence of President Lincoln, and on one occasion, President Truman was awoke by a knocking on the door of the Lincoln bedroom when he slept there. His daughter Margaret said she heard the same knocking when she stayed there as well.
Do you think they would let us into the White House to do a seance?
Absolutely not.
There's already a demon in there. We don't need to go in to verify.
No, I'm definitely flagged for the White House. I'm flagged.
You think so?
Oh yeah, for sure. Just my history, my internet browsing history because of this podcast is awful. Not to mention everything that I have Googled before that. I'm definitely out. Winston Churchill, Presidents Johnson and Roosevelt, and others have claimed to see a full-body apparition of him.
I just don't get why it's Lincoln. Like, there's so many presidents who have died. He didn't even die in the house. Why is he
Probably
Mr. Special
because
Ghost?
his wife was trying to resurrect his soul from the second that he died, most likely. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I would assume it's tied to her having seance.
Oh yeah, it's definitely her fault, without a doubt.
Depending on when she was kicked out.
God damn it, Mary.
And I think the next day she'd probably have a seance. Like, she seemed like the type. Yeah. From everything that I read about her, that would have been part of her grieving process, I think.
Do we know what she was doing the moment he was killed? Was she currently doing a seance for her sons? And then he popped up.
Was she with him at the theater?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Good question.
Huh.
Google tells me on April 14th, 1865, she was sitting next to her husband at the Ford Theater when he was assassinated.
Man.
Well, she was obviously crazy before, but I'd be extra crazy after. Your husband gets shot next to you.
Yeah,
you're
next to you. So she probably had blood on her.
Ooh, Jackie Kennedy. Oh.
That does not sound like a fun time. Chip, would you like to talk about your pictures that are at the end of this doc?
I was just, because I was disproving that stupid picture, like, this is dumb. I took these pictures by accident when I was fucking around with my camera. When, like, years ago, I learned how long exposures work. So.
Oh my god, that's great.
How old are you here?
That's 2010, so...
I love that you have Bowser hanging up in your room.
Damn it. He's still up.
I love me some Daddy
Chip's room has
Bowser.
not changed very much according to this photograph.
Yeah. Let's not talk about that part. Yeah, but the double exposure, long exposure, very easy to do, especially back then when it was all long exposure. They just
Right.
needed a guy with a beard to stand behind her for 5 seconds and then walk away.
Well, the picture of Mary Todd Lincoln with... That's very... Nope. We're doing that again. The infamous photo of Mary Todd Lincoln and her alleged husband can be found on the website if you guys want to take a look at it and decide for yourself whether or not you believe it's a hoax.
Maybe we'll even post my ghost. Ooh.
I think there's something to be said when the First Lady of the United States decides that she's going to embrace something like spiritualism and have seances in the White House. I think the kind of mainstream that something becomes through an endorsement like that, especially because you have to think for a very long time people were very scared to embrace any kind of spiritualism or paganism because of the Salem witch trials and similar incidents, that they were scared to be accused of
Fair.
witchcraft. Yeah. And so when you have somebody like the First Lady of the United States who's endorsing it, I think that it definitely provokes a different reaction when you hear about it. You're not as scared anymore. Well, if the First Lady's doing it in the White House, then, yeah.
It could be a focal, like...
Maybe I could
point
call up
of
Uncle George.
Turning history towards practicing paganism.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about it.
What did you say about what, Chip?
I said, well, if the First Lady can do it, maybe I can call up Uncle George. He can tell me where that money is that he owes me.
I feel like that's actually a focal point of a lot of ghost shows. Money hidden somewhere. Oh, there was an episode of Lost, actually, where... What was it? What was his name? Miles? I don't know. That can speak to the dead people, where he found out where the money was and he, like, took the money. He's like, okay, he's at rest, bye.
It's in Soul Food, too, isn't it? The movie Soul Food?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Where Grandpa Joe dies or something? Is it Joe? And it's hidden in his TV?
I haven't seen Soul Food since I was, like, 11 years old, but I think it was, I think you're right, it was Soul Food.
in his TV or something, because he loved watching TV. Yeah.
People are crazy. It's totally unrelated.
We're going to use this as a test, though. If one of us dies while we're making this podcast, we have to hide money before we die, and then Ouija board, and if we can find out where the money was, ghosts are real.
That's perfect.
I like it.
We did talk about possibly doing a seance during and Mikey's introduction, and it's gonna end up in the blooper reel, but just so you know, we talked about having a seance and how it would work, and I was like, oh, it's okay if anything goes wrong, we'll just need to figure out a way to send all the bad stuff to Chip, and not have it be in my house.
Rude.
I had no part of that, Chip, just for the record. I was going to go along with it, but I had no part in the creation.
I didn't come up with the plan. I was going to go along with the plan, but I didn't make it.
I am 100% on board. However, it's fine, because I didn't do any of the rituals as a kid. Therefore, I've got the virgin blood for our rituals.
You have the least virgin blood.
What have you been using my blood
you
for?
You cannot light the black flame candles. So let's talk about some different rituals and the history of them. Bloody Mary, also known as Mary Worth, Mary Worthington, Mary Wales, Hail Mary, and many others, basically every Mary that's ever existed might be Bloody Mary.
What if it was Mary Todd Lincoln?
Wow, that's just
Shit.
full circle.
What if Bloody Mary is Mary Todd Lincoln? She's bloody because Lincoln was assassinated.
And she had blood on her.
I wish you could see my face.
That's insane.
Breaking news! Truth seekers!
That's really interesting.
Okay, now we're gonna do Bloody Mary and we're gonna call out to
Do
her.
we just say Mary Todd Lincoln in the mirror multiple times? Because it seems like it's gonna be a tongue twister.
Well, when did it, like, origin?
It was already commonplace by the 1970s, and the first essay on her legend was written in 1978 by a folklorist called Janet Langlis, which means generations of kids have been playing Bloody Mary. Some claim that it's Mary I of England, Mary Tudor, is the basis for the ritual, but fact-checking sites like Snopes and other things say otherwise. Other notable leads have included Mary Worth, executed for witchcraft during the Salem witch trials, and Elizabeth Bathory, the Queen of Blood, who I'm sure we will cover at some point because she's one of the first historical examples of a female psychopath. Alan Dundes, another folklorist, wrote an essay on how he believes that the legend is tied to the appearance of womanhood, aka the appearance of blood, and I do not think that Alan Dundes understands peoples with vaginas or periods or anything else, because that just makes zero sense to me.
Stared in the mirror, and then suddenly my crotch started gushing blood, and I was a woman.
And I was like, Bloody Mary! Oh, Bloody Mary! I will admit that Bloody Mary is one of those first things in The Girl's Guide to Sleepovers, so I can see it being like a prepubescent type of thing, but that would mean that some 11-year-old girl made up a game because she got her period, and that's insane to me. I don't believe it at all.
Did she use that blood to write her name in the mirror?
Yikes.
This is going to ruin the drink Bloody Mary for me. Like, it's done. It's ruined.
Fair. So since some people think that Mary Worth, who was executed for witchcraft during the Salem witch trials, could possibly be Bloody Mary, the Salem witch trials were farther back than Lincoln's assassination or him and his wife being in the White House. I mean, as far as that goes, it's not completely out of the question that we have created our own folklore for Bloody Mary that is accurate.
Yep, it started right here, folks.
The problem is that a folklorist didn't write it down until the 70s, and so many of these other rituals and parlor games are so much older, their written documentation is so much older, that if it is that old of a game, I would think that there would be some kind of documentation for it. Somebody would have written down something about Bloody Mary.
I'm gonna go back and defend Alan what's-his-face? What was his last name? How do you say it?
Unless it's Dundee's.
Sure. I'm gonna go with this. Alan Dundee's, he's gone to this. Because imagine, you're a girl in the 50s, and you just got your period for the first time. None of your friends have had their period yet. So you invite them over for a sleepover, and you're like, guys, I heard about this evil ghost. I'm gonna go in the bathroom and say this name 3 times, and then, guys, oh god, I'm bleeding! I'm bleeding!
Oh no, you're making this convincing and I hate it! That's something that I would do!
Absolutely you would.
Oh no!
I mean, it's kind of plausible.
Oh no! I'm so upset.
The Moe from the 1950s started Bloody Mary.
I would like to meet her. She might be still alive. She's just 80, but she might still be kicking it.
She also wrote an essay on Mary Todd Lincoln.
Yes. Correct.
It all connects. It all connects.
The It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme with all the red yarn. But Light as a Feather goes back much farther than Bloody Mary. It goes back to the 17th century. And it was first documented in 1665 in a diary entry by Samuel Pepys, who was a naval administrator. So a very reliable first-hand source, I would say. And the original version of the chant, recorded by Pepys, was, "Behold a dead body, still as stone, cold as marble, light as spirit, we lift you in the name of Jesus Christ." While the chant evolved into its modern form, the sentiments are the same. The person being lifted is acting as a dead body, and the lifters chant, along with them touching the person playing dead, is what lifts them up. There has been a lot of conjecture about the rise of the Black Plague and how many dead bodies were around children at the time. By the 1940s, it had solidified its place as a children's slumber party game in the US. It's very morbid.
Yeah.
I realize that I've played it 100 times, but when it's behold a dead body, we lift you in the name of Jesus Christ, it's a lot creepier than light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Yeah, because what if they were playing with actual corpses?
Oh no. Just little 8-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
We lift you in the name of Jesus Christ.
In the ravine.
I would drown them. Drown them. I'm definitely gonna have to cut that because it's murdery and about children, but those are some creepy children.
Yeah.
Why are kids so creepy? Just...
Children are tiny psychopaths.
They are. Just seeing a whole bunch of kids playing with corpses out in the street.
As you do. I mean, it's 1665 or whatever. You gotta make your own fun.
True. Maybe that's why they baptized children, because they were playing with dead corpses and they needed to wash them off and bless them.
Yes. I just decided that's correct.
That's correct. It has to be.
Did you play Light as a Feather?
I did.
Did
Most
you lift
of the time,
people?
I was the body, because I was always small, so, like, I'm tiny.
That's the other thing. Even when you're a kid, you know that the smallest person should
Is
definitely be the one
body.
lifted.
Like, yeah, they tell you that you are.
That's
Your
an obvious
You
cheat.
children didn't have scientific enough minds. You gotta go with the heaviest body to make it work. You gotta disprove your own hypothesis.
Correct.
Maybe it only works on dead bodies, though. I mean, have you had success while doing it?
I mean, yes, but also when you have 12 kids
Lifting the
smallest kid, and you're using 2 fingers are still pretty strong.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's say that with your 2 fingers, you can lift, so 4 fingers, 2 on each hand. You can lift 5 pounds. If there's 10 kids lifting 5 pounds, you can lift another 50, 60-pound kid. Mm-hmm. No problem. I feel so jaded and sad. So let's talk about some other divination games that none of us, I don't think, have played. Because they've fallen out of fashion, we'll say. Games like Who Will I Marry? Who Will I Marry, like Light as a Feather, is old and goes back to at least 1776, when a slightly different ritual garnering the same outcome is mentioned in a French grimoire named Le Petit Albert. And there is a much longer name for that I am not even going to attempt. But needless to say, it is in French, and it is very long. A lot of those games were a lot like the original form of Bloody Mary.
I've read that it started with women holding a hand mirror, and they would walk backwards up a flight of stairs, repeating Bloody Mary to divinate who they were going to marry or something like that.
I don't understand why Bloody Mary would tell them that. Especially when she became such a figure that's a fear-inspiring figure later.
I think from what I read, it was under the assumption that she is a witch. Which would go back to the whole Mary Worth thing. I think is what I had read.
So maybe they thought that Bloody Mary was Mary Worth.
Right.
And so since she was burned as a witch, she must have some type of powers. Mm-hmm. And those powers can help tell us who our husbands are.
Originally, I guess, it was either you saw your future husband or you saw her or the Grim Reaper. I've heard different variations.
I also heard a variation that it was like, if you don't see anyone, it means you're going to die before you can get married. That's horrible view. Maybe I'm just going to die a spinster. Don't make it sound like I'm going to die tomorrow. Maybe I'm actually a lesbian trying to live in this here
world. What
world.
really happened is when they didn't see anything, they fell down the stairs because they were walking backwards.
And they plummeted to their death. The end.
The end.
And everyone blames Bloody Mary.
Unmarried.
It's like the worst thing you could be.
That's awful because at least one person fell down the stairs,
Oh,
right?
for sure.
Like, walking up
I would
backwards.
say dozens fell down the stairs,
Yeah.
but only one died.
One died, right. But
Right.
somebody did, right?
Yeah. Somebody definitely perished playing that game, which would just...
Maybe it was tied to that.
Well,
Like,
it would
maybe her
just
name was
add
Mary.
to the game, and the game must be real. So-and-so saw Brad in the mirror, and now they're married, so it must be real. So-and-so died by falling down the damn stairs.
Right.
She didn't see anything.
And her name was Mary, and she was very bloody.
Yes.
And that is how the origin story started.
Perfect.
Statistically, like 8 of us were named Mary, but one of us was gonna
I
die.
was just gonna say, how many, weren't there 2 or 3 Marys that were burned as a witch?
I mean, there had to have been.
Almost certainly.
Yeah, like, that has to be a thing. There was lots of Emilys, too.
Bloody Emily.
So, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 accused Marys?
6.
Oh, there's even
7.
more. It looked like they were all in
8,
order.
9.
Mary Marston, Mary Worth, Mary Black, Mary Bradbury, Mary Bridges Sr., Mary Bridges Jr. A lot of Marys.
Interesting, I just read this. A Massachusetts jury acquitted Mary Webster of witchcraft in 1683, but her neighbors still thought of her as a witch, especially since she survived after they left her hanging from a tree. It was 9 years before the Salem witch trials would begin.
Wow.
Damn.
I mean, not to get morbid, but it depends on how well they hang you. If your neck doesn't snap, if they don't kick it out from underneath you, or if you are able to kind of brace yourself before with your hands.
Though hanging in a tree?
Yeah.
Until someone discovered that you were alive.
Do we know how long she was hanging there?
I can read more.
I would be interested to know, because it might just be 15 minutes.
Which is even still pretty good if you're hanging by your throat, slowly suffocating in a way.
I mean, it depends, though, if they tied her hands, because if she could get her hands around the rope, then there would have been slightly enough room, maybe, if she was light. I don't know. I have questions.
If you were hung as a witch but didn't die, call in.
So let's talk about me and Chip's favorite on the list. Red door, yellow door, 7 doors, doors to the mind. They're all variations on the same theme, and the youngest ritual of its type that we will be covering today. It's a great example of rituals or ritual pastas in the world of Reddit being shared and spread by the internet. In fact, the name I knew it by as a kid was 4 Doors, and the earliest record that I could actually find of people referencing them playing it on the internet is 2005. So that's incredibly, incredibly young. It was 2005. When I first remember hearing it, it would have been around 2001. But that kind of tracks because people that were my age at the time that were playing it, we did a lot of AIM and a lot of live journaling. But we weren't really on forums that were like, oh, this is this ritual I did with me and my friends. Or this is this game that I played. It was just a different kind of internet experience, I feel like, for people that were 11 or 12 at that time.
Back in my day.
How come we were friends and we never played?
I don't know, because I only played once, and I played at a Girl Scout camp. And I was in 7th grade, and it didn't work very well. By very well, I mean at all, the first time I did it. Probably because it was a Girl Scout camp. There was a group full of rowdy girls. It's like 20 girls in a cabin. And I didn't know how to meditate. It's very guided meditation like.
Was this a thing that they set up for you guys to do, or did you guys just play it on your own?
We just played it on our own.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. No, they can't.
Yikes.
Our scout leader was definitely not like, hey, let's do this.
And tomorrow night we'll do Bloody Mary.
And tomorrow night we'll do Bloody Mary. I brought my Ouija board from home.
You probably did, though.
I did it.
That's believable to me.
It's not. I actually didn't own a Ouija board until I made one with a wood burner when I was older, an older teenager.
Of course you fucking did.
I still have it.
Well, that's the one we're using.
Each version of the game has slightly different rules. All of them share the same common threads and are purely done in your own subconscious. So it's not like some of the other games where you're calling on Bloody Mary, calling on a spirit. It all takes place in your own subconscious. Depending on which version of the game you're playing, they're all very similar. There's different quote-unquote rules. And me and Chip don't obey the rules at all. Some of those rules are, if you end up in a room with mirrors, run. If you see an old lady, run. And I will say from experience that you don't need to run from the old lady, but do not drink her underworld tea. Other pro tip is that the gnomes are cannibals.
Another pro tip, Sleepy Moe doesn't know what the word cannibal means.
So me and Chip did record us playing it. We played it last summer. And I will put a clip of that on the website. Not here, because it's just full of F-bombs. It's a lot.
I want to play. I'm interested now.
It's really fun. So we played Doors to the Mind. And in that version, you have a guide. Somebody is guiding you. You're kind of like massaging their temples. I played some different meditation music just to help me get into like a headspace to meditate. And your guide is walking you down the hallway that is filled with doors. And you're describing the doors and you're going in the rooms or not going in the rooms. Really interesting because the first few doors, you're very aware of still what's happening around you physically. And then after 2 doors or so, I was mostly just aware of what was happening in the meditation. And I knew that the person talking to me was Chip. Like, I didn't think, oh, there's this voice that I'm answering. I knew that it was Chip. It just sounded like Chip's voice was coming from the room itself, from the hallway itself in the room that I was in, on a PA system, versus me saying, oh, I'm laying on this couch. There was this door, and I went in the door, and then it was this park outside, which is interesting because both of us had outside rooms, and I have never heard of anybody else having an outside room. And there was a tree, and there was a door to get in the tree, and I had to find a key, and I go in, and it's like this gnome-like hobbit house, and I knew that gnomes lived in it, and it was just, the entire thing was a disappointment to me. I remember that I thought the gnomes were cannibals, but they weren't actually cannibals, they just killed squirrels. They were like squirrel hunting little monsters. But I said the word cannibal probably because I didn't know how to describe anything. I was filled with disappointment. I just knew that they were mangy. I wish I could explain it better. It's a lot of fun, though. I actually got a submission from someone and their experience with Red Door, Yellow Door. A person by the name of Asher Hawkersmith. He is of Andean Flames on Reddit. He said, I've always loved paranormal stuff, weird games that freak you out, paranormal videos and stories. Not that I believed any of them. I always hoped some of them were real, but most of them were scary enough that I lost sleep. I even wrote some paranormal stories, mostly fantasy. But I've got one about a little girl and her friend. Anyway, I've played some paranormal games. The Lady in the Tower, Cat Scratches, and a Ouija-like game involving a Japanese spirit. None of them will scare me more than Red Door, Yellow Door, though. Have you guys heard of those games?
I've never heard of Lady in the Tower.
I haven't either, but it sounds amazing.
I think.
Lady in the Tower sounds like a good time. I don't know why.
I have done cat scratches.
So,
you have to. It's the same concept of rubbing somebody's mind and getting them into a meditative state, and then you basically tell this story, and it ends with you being attacked by a cat in some way, shape, or form.
I have heard about
and then
that.
You're supposed to turn on the lights and then
see if you have
see
scratches.
If you have cat scratches on your back.
I have heard about that. Like when I was much younger.
Yeah.
Much younger. That's interesting. So Michael is going to investigate The Lady in the Tower, and I'm going to get on with the submission. Red Door, Yellow Door is a game where one person lays on the ground and puts their arms out in a zombie-like fashion. They close their eyes and wait, while the leader puts their fingers on their forehead. Then, the leader slowly rubs their fingers around the subject's forehead in little circles. They quietly chant, Red Door, Yellow Door, any other color door. The chant can vary depending on where you found the instructions. Then, when they get dizzy, the subject puts their arms down. Now I can explain the purpose of the game. The reason this game exists is to delve deep into your own mind. There's really no reason other than that. We never took it seriously. Of course, if you have depression or some other mental disorder, it is probably a bad idea. The game is designed specifically to break down walls in your mind that otherwise cage evil and awful thoughts. Now that you know the purpose, you should know some of the warning signs that something is going wrong. If the person starts breathing heavily, break them out of the trance. You should do this by gently slapping their face and telling them to wake up. If this isn't working, you're generally screwed. So optimistic. There is no way to force them out of the trance. You just have to wait it out and manually steer them out of there. Then there are some dangers of playing. Supposedly, you can actually die in real life. Some ways this can happen. If there is a man in the suit, get out of there. He can kill you. There are some versions where he has a certain type of tie, and he is actually there to help. 2. If you get trapped in a water chamber, you died. There's a few other ways to die, but I can't remember them. Anyway, you get the gist of how to start and some dangers. Now here's how to play. Ask the subject what they see. If they see no doors, get them out. If they do see doors, ask them what colors the doors are. After they reply, ask them how that makes them feel. If it is a negative feeling, either get them out or tell them to go to another door. Repeat this process. If it's a good feeling, tell them to go in. Ask them what they see. If it's a concrete with holes around the top, get them out. That's the water room. There are other rooms, but I won't go into that. If you want more details, just look up red door, yellow door. My first time playing red door, yellow door, nothing interesting happened. I encountered the suit guy, but he didn't do anything. My other friends didn't have anything interesting either. We all moved on. Fast forward a year or so later to this very year. Me and one of my friends were hanging out with a different friend. We will call them L and T. Now me and L, the one from before, mentioned to T that we had played some scary games, and we started messing around. First, we played cat scratches. If you do it right, the subject will have long red scratches on their back. We did this to T first, and then I did it to prove that it actually worked. We both had long scratches for a few minutes, and then they faded. Then she told us to give her the best that we had, the scariest game, that is. We agreed and told her what to do. Elle wanted to be the leader, so I sat down next to T. She put her arms down after about 20 seconds, which is long. Elle asked her what she saw. She said a hallway filled with doors. He told her to approach the door on the left. He asked her what color it was. She said that it was an orangish yellow. He asked how it made her feel. She said it made her feel good. He told her to enter. He asked her what she saw. She said it was a sunset over a calm, beautiful meadow. He asked her what she felt. She said she felt calm. Then Elle asked her if there were any other doors in the room. That's when things went straight to hell. T said yes. Elle looked slightly confused. He said okay and asked what color the door was. She said that it was white. He asked her how she felt, and she said she wasn't sure. He told her to go in. He asked her what she saw, and she said there was a man in front of her. He asked if the man was in a suit, and she said yes. We briefly argued about tie color, and eventually agreed that she should leave. Elle told her to leave. She said that there was no door. This is the part, to me, the only part that freaked me out, because having done something similar to this before, what would you have done if I was in the room with the old lady who offered me tea, and I was like, I think I'm gonna go to the underworld if I drink the tea, or I'm gonna have to stay here forever, and then the door disappeared.
Oh, fuck.
That's kind of scary.
Seriously, like, the doors aren't supposed to disappear because you know the rules of the game starting to play, so then your subconscious knows that there's always going to be a door, and for the door to just disappear, nope, city. At that point, my blood ran cold. We wildly tried to convince her that there was a door, but it didn't work. She said that the man was moving towards her. Failing the door option, Elle tried slapping her gently, but no luck. We started panicking, and she started getting scared. I told her that there was a weapon beside her, a gun, a knife, anything, and she had to kill the man. She suddenly said that she... Yeah. It gets better. Even if this isn't real, real.
This is intense.
Even if, like, I don't want to call into question. This is
Our beloved submission
from somebody.
Asher.
Yes, a beloved submission. But even if it isn't real, this is the best. Because this is, like, all my worst fears that I didn't know that I even had. And I love this game. She suddenly said that she couldn't kill the man, that his face was that of her dad. Elle was on the brink of tears now, and I was feeling uneasy. I told her to look around for the door again, and she said that there was one. Feeling relief, I told her to run. Elle was in tears now. T opened her eyes. You would think that that was the end, right? Well, unfortunately, that's not quite it. Elle and I were relieved, but I was the first to notice that something was wrong. T was sitting against the wall, her face buried in her knees. I asked what was wrong, and she said that she was in a castle. I realized that the game was not over yet. I asked what she saw. My friend called for his dad, but I shushed him. That wasn't the best idea, but I felt that an unfamiliar face would only serve to scare T even more. Elle was crying harder now, but he remained relatively calm. I asked what T saw, but she started babbling, saying that life wasn't worth living and that she was scared and she was in a cage and why did I trap her here? And she was crying too now, but she was shaking and rocking back and forth. I was on the brink of crying too now. I offered my hand to her, but she said, "Don't touch me," and I blanched. I desperately asked her where she was, and she said that she was out now, but her and Elle were still crying. And Elle's dad came down and said that we should call her parents to get her home. I called my mom, who was also in town, and had her pick me up. The moral is that mental barriers exist, and don't break them down because things can go wrong very quick. The secondary moral is to be careful and don't mess with the paranormal. Nothing good comes of it. Michael's like, I'm done. I don't want to play the game anymore.
That was intense. I don't know if I want to. I still have chills.
My experience was nothing like this. Either time. The first time, it was garbage and didn't work. And I had a lot of fun when me and Chip did it. But also, now I'm like, is it in my subconscious that there's not going to be a door? I purposefully didn't read people's Doors to the Mind experiences. There's a Reddit forum called The Three Kings that has a lot of rituals and things like that kind of got birthed out of the no sleep subreddit. And I purposefully, for like a solid year, didn't read any of them because I knew me and Chip were going to go camping in the summer and we were going to do it. And I didn't want anything to affect my mind. Don't encounter the old lady or the man in the suit. There's also a man in the suit for Doors to the Mind that became part of the lore that someone kind of invented the story for, where he shows up and he gives you his card and you can like call him if you're in trouble and things like that it's just putting into people's subconscious that he can exist and that he can help get you out. So I purposefully didn't read anything for that reason. If other people saw bad things, I didn't want that to be in my head.
Right. That makes
so now I'm like, the door's gonna disappear.
So now my entire experience is ruined.
Sorry. I mean, you just have to wait long enough until you're not thinking about the door disappearing, and then you'll probably be fine. Because the old lady was in my subconscious, but I was fine. I mean, she tried to get me to stay with her in the underworld or whatever, but other than that, I didn't. So, it's fine.
And a big part with this story that we got submitted, like, the people who are outside of it are, like, freaking out. You don't want people who are freaking out on the outside. That's gonna fuck with you on the inside.
I feel like rituals are a lot like doing drugs for the first time. Like, you need a babysitter that has experience and is like a steel trap when it comes to mindfulness of the situation to get everyone out of crap.
Agreed.
Play light as a feather, stiff as a board all you want. It's fine. And it's gonna work. Because the person you're lifting is 50 pounds. We've established that. So that's a good place to start.
Well, first practice with real dead bodies.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
But yeah, if you're in the mind and your guide is like freaking out because there's a man with a suit, great. Now the man's going evil.
Yeah. Well, I think that just, even if she wouldn't have realized anything was wrong, hearing them be like, what color is the tie? You're like, oh, the tie is very important. I don't know why, but I don't want to give the wrong answer.
Now he's my dad.
So our last batch of games is Ouija boards, and not very surprisingly at all, we got a lot of submissions on Ouija boards. You've played with a Ouija board, right, Mikey?
Yeah, quite a few times.
Chip, you said you've never played with a Ouija board?
My mom's the kind who would not allow one in the house. Like, no, we're not having that nonsense here.
My mom is like that too, and it's so funny because I kind of already knew the history of Ouija boards a little bit, and when I told my mom, like, do you know that the Ouija board is a Parker Brothers game? I think it was Milton Bradley by time I was a kid. It's been a lot of different toy companies, but it started at Parker Brothers. My mom, she didn't care. It's just like, Mom, it's fine. Not today, Satan. Ouija boards may very well just be a game devised by Parker Brothers to make that money, but that hasn't stopped them from becoming the spookiest American pastime. Prior to Elijah Bond securing his patent for the Ouija board in 1890, or prior to his friend and business partner, Charles Kennard, inventing it, depending on which side of the story you're listening to, members of the spiritualist movement used alphabet cards and a planchette in their seances. Some variation of talking boards have been around since about 1850, but that didn't stop Elijah Bond from finding a way to capitalize on it. The setup was very similar to what Bond would later patent and become the Ouija board, but this time it would be on one simple board and come with the planchette. The name itself even came from a seance that Bond held, which his sister-in-law, Helen Peters, Noseworthy, attended. Helen was known as a medium, and she seemed to be the most qualified to ask the question, "What do we call you?" And the board answered, "Ouija." When further probed with, "What does that mean?" the board's reply was, "Good luck."
Good luck, sucker.
That's funny.
Satan is your problem now.
But I can't imagine being in that room. You know, it's the first time the board's ever been used, so
yeah.
It's extra spooky. Yeah, it's extra spooky the first time, and nothing like that was, one board was used. They were using alphabet cards, and it was so deep in the spiritualist movement that I just can imagine that some people were like, "Oh, good luck," like, "Oh, it's a mystery to solve," and everyone else was like, "Good luck, what does it mean?" Today, she is known as the mother of the Ouija board. In fact, Bond, upon hearing that he would have to prove that his invention worked at the patent office in order to secure said patent, took Helen with him and traveled to Washington, D.C. to the office. After being denied multiple times, the chief patent officer said that if the board could spell out and identify his name, allegedly unknown to either Elijah or Helen, that he would give them their patent. The board did, thus securing their patent and securing its place as a mass-produced parlor game that's still made today.
That's insane.
It is insane, but also the chief patent officer is like, "Oh, well, if the board could spell out and identify my name..."
I mean, his name has to be somewhere, right?
He's the head of the office. Like, it's not written anywhere.
Yeah, right.
And nobody knows his name? And did they know... How long before the meeting did they know that that's what they were going to have to do?
Also, what is this? I don't know a lot about
and
patenting.
How much did they pay him?
So the whole thing about patenting is he had to prove that it was an invention and therefore prove that it did something and or worked. It had to do what it claimed.
Right.
And so the patent officer is basically like, "You have to prove that this works to me. You can't just patent this and sell it and bamboozle people. So if it can spell out my name and it can identify me, then the spirits are obviously working through the board, I guess, and it does what it says."
Sounds like they paid the guy, just saying.
It is an epic origin story, though.
It is. Totally.
But they probably paid him. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm too cynical for this one.
Did you guys see that the largest Ouija board that was constructed in Salem?
Yes, I did.
That's cool.
I don't know if you saw it, Chip. They just constructed in Salem for Halloween the largest Ouija board.
But how is it practical use? Do you stand on it and it floats around?
It has a huge planchette, but I'm pretty sure the planchette is
you moving it.
Yeah,
physically.
It doesn't move. It just is on posts. What would you even do instead of putting fingers? Like, just your whole body? You're just leaning your whole body against it, like...
This is where you get some magnets and it gets creepy.
Stand on it and see what happens.
Apparently, the largest one was a Guinness World Record holder in Ripley's Believe It or Not, but it is now 2.5 times larger than that one.
Oh, that's very big.
You stand inside of it? Apparently, you're supposed to stand inside of it. It weighs 9,000 pounds and covers 3,168 square feet.
Jesus Christ.
That's a huge bitch.
It is the size of 5 18-wheelers.
Well.
That's a lot of work.
How long do you have to wait to, find a name? Hopefully you're not spelling out, a 12-letter word.
How much do you have to walk? Pedometer. If you're inside of the planchette, then I imagine that you just are walking across a football field back and forth to spell out, it's Granny.
Yeah.
Good luck.
You end the day with 20,000 steps.
Gotta hatch me some eggs and pogo.
And now you know that Chip is the last person alive playing Pokemon Go.
It's had a renaissance. It's not good yet.
But it's fine. So we have a couple of submissions from listeners and people on Reddit, and Chip's gonna read some of them right now. Chip?
My wife made a Ouija board because she didn't think much of the little ones bought at a store and that they would work. We used it a couple times and got a bit of communication from it. About a week later, lights and electronics started coming on and off by themselves. We'd hear footsteps, but nothing too crazy. Finally, one night, we were both woken up around 3 a.m. to the sound of something rattling against our bed. We had a wrought iron footrest, and the best way to describe it is, it sounded like someone was running with a stick and hitting every bar on the footrest. We ignored it and tried not to give more energy, and promptly threw the board away the next morning. Nothing happened after that. Thanks, Christina. Freak Nation Podcast.
So, I've heard this, multiple times. I've read that type of scenario where shit starts happening and they throw the board away and then supposedly nothing else happens. I've heard it personally. I've read it. I feel like that's a common thing. I don't know if it's in people's heads or if it's, legit.
I would do nothing short of burning the board. I'm not just gonna throw the board away, because if I just put something in my house, that doesn't mean it's gonna stay attached to the board, in my opinion. It's just gonna hang around my house.
But then how does burning the board help?
I don't know, I just watch a lot of Supernatural. Just salt and burn it in the backyard. It'll be fine.
The whole concept is you call a spirit to the board, correct? So, wouldn't removing the board remove the spirit as well?
Let's say it's still attached to the board, but you throw the board in the garbage can. I wonder how many spirits on Ouija boards are trapped at the landfill.
Our first on the scene episode. We're going to a landfill with a Ouija board.
No, we're probably going to find dead bodies. I'm not doing that. Well, then we can solve murders. Okay, it's fine. We can do that.
Then we can play Light as a Feather.
Perfect. We're always coming full circle.
With that one, I wouldn't have been that spooked at that point. They threw it out pretty early on. I need full body apparitions before I'm throwing out the board.
Fair. And it sounded like somebody was running with a stick and hitting the footrest. That doesn't make me feel nice if it's made of wrought iron. That's supposed to be protective. Nah.
Satan's tapping on your door.
Also, who has a wrought iron footrest at the end of their
Who
bed?
does have a wrought iron footrest?
No offense, Christina. But I don't know.
I have follow-up questions for Christina.
I'm curious as to how many days they had it. Because it says finally one night.
Yeah, it doesn't say how long she had been playing with it. It might have not even
Did
been
they
from...
think at one time?
Yeah, it could have been from the first time, though, and it just took a while for something to have the energy enough to...
Because, yeah, it says about a week later.
Thanks, Christina. All right, let's try another one.
There was a time about 7 years ago. My mother and sister lived far away, and they are disabled, so I had to go there to clean up for an annual housing inspection at her house. The kids and I were going to drive over there, but we needed someone to watch the dogs for about a week. My stepdaughter said she would do it if I paid her to stay there, and I agreed, but I knew that she dabbled in witchcraft. I also knew that she didn't really know what she was doing in that area, so I didn't trust her to not bring something dark into my house. I told her she could stay there as long as she didn't practice any witchcraft there, and she promised she wouldn't, but wanted to know if she could at least bring some of her tarot cards. Now, I didn't see anything wrong with that, so I said yes. What she failed to mention was that she uses a pendulum in her tarot reading. 3 days later, she calls me saying that she couldn't stay there anymore and that I had to make other arrangements. When I asked her why, she told me that my place had been cold since the second night, things kept crashing in the kitchen, and she saw the shadow of what looked like a little girl running down the hall. All that was not what scared her as much as what she saw outside. It was the image of a human-like creature crawling towards her on the side of the laundry room wall. She said she was no longer in my house, so I raced home, only to find my house in disarray and all the dogs hiding scared out of their minds under the bed. It took us a while to get rid of whatever she brought in.
I actually asked her a couple of questions. I asked her why the pendulum bothered her so much, and she said it wasn't necessarily the pendulum, but that she didn't know what she was doing at all. She would use it to summon spirits to guide the outcome of the cards for a more accurate reading. Also, she said that the daughter at one point had bought fairy dust for $40, and she was like, where did they find it? The daughter really believed that it was from actual fairies. She said she always asked me for help fixing her mistakes. And just for some background on the person that submitted, she also said, my mother raised us all to embrace our special abilities that any of us had. She was a spot on Vedic astrologer and practiced positive affirmations. She had us all study the science of divination arts. My sister casted runes, my eldest sister read palms, and my brother threw tarot cards and did positive suggestion hypnotism, and I was sensitive. You can find Brandy on Reddit as Crazy Turtle Mama. She has a couple of different interesting stories. I thought it was really interesting just because she was kind of raised within the craft, and so to have that situation be one of the things that stuck out to her, I thought was kind of interesting.
But yeah, the image of a human-like creature crawling towards her on a wall? No.
Yeah.
No.
No, thank you.
We're done here.
It was just a cryptid, and he was friendly and wanted to meet her.
No cryptid goes near a laundry room.
So basically, this woman paid her stepdaughter to wreak havoc on her house. Basically, is what you're telling me?
Yes, that's basically what happened.
I feel like if you summoned it, you should take care of it.
Yeah, but it's also her house, so you're not gonna trust somebody if she doesn't have the experience. You're not gonna be like, oh, just get rid of it.
And then I literally thought to myself, I don't think even if I did that, would I do it in somebody else's house? But then I remembered as kids, we did it at everybody's house. Like Lisa's sister. Like I've never even met her.
Did it in a lot of fields and public parks.
Yeah,
and
right, yeah. So I guess.
Well, yeah, you fuck over the other people.
The SW Hall baseball field. Yeah.
Hey, I did it in my house more often than anywhere.
Yeah.
It's a miracle you guys are alive.
Is it?
There was very rarely anything bad happened. I can remember like 3 times that I was like, this was not a good day. Yeah, it was a bonding time.
Friendships forged in blood and closets. But yeah, this family that's just all about the witchcraft, and they've got this stepdaughter who sucks at it.
What a cool way to be raised.
When she says, and I was sensitive, does that mean she was like,
I think she means that she was sensitive to spirits in general, like communicating with spirits.
Yeah, that's what I usually hear that as.
Okay.
We have one last submission. Of course, it's also about Ouija boards.
It sounds so depressed about it. Like, of course, it's another fucking Ouija board one. Here we go.
It's not that I'm necessarily disappointed that it is about Ouija boards. I'm just disappointed that there wasn't anything that... I want to know what the Lady in the Tower is. Like, I just wanted something that was like, we're playing this game you never heard of in your life, and the rules are, like, crazy. Like, you have to be in a hot air balloon on a full moon. Like, I just wanted something that was like...
I used Google, I used Bing, I used Ask Jeeves. I could not find a damn thing on the Lady in the Tower game. All I found was a book, Lady in the Tower, and it's about the controversial, like... death of the second wife to Henry VIII.
What?
Yeah, you might need to put this on your future iPod, or we need to tell Kuba to investigate, because she'll get obsessed with it and write a novel about it. But yeah, there's some, like, controversial, like, topic about it.
Now we're all Googling.
Welcome to the research portion that takes place during the podcast.
So it says, nearly 500 years after her violent death, Anne Boleyn, second wife to Henry VIII, remains one of the world's most fascinating, controversial, and tragic heroines. Now acclaimed historian and best-selling author Alison Ware has drawn on myriad sources from the Tudor era to give us the first book that examines in unprecedented depth the gripping, dark, and chilling story of Anne Boleyn's final days.
On brand, Kuba is very much into Anne Boleyn.
In a future episode, we will investigate this.
Now that we've been thoroughly distracted, on with the submission.
My stepsister had some friends over, and one of them brought a Ouija board. At first, I was very doubtful that it would do anything at all. I thought, it's just a game. They were all using it and had all sorts of questions, and they came up with some off-the-wall questions. They contacted a guy named Bill that had killed himself during the Great Depression and had a pet alligator he called Fred. I'm sorry, what?
You can't even get through it. I feel like if this is a real person that they contacted, there has to be some kind of historical documentation of the alligator man.
During the
Unless this is like in the bayou. Because if it's in the bayou...
Oh, everyone's got a fucking alligator.
Yeah, there's a man named Fred that lives there right now that has a pet alligator. Or a man named Bill with a pet alligator named Fred.
During the Great Depression, when people couldn't afford to feed themselves, they were walking around with pet alligators. I mean,
Well, they were eating the gator, so they were raising him to be juicy. Because they still eat gator in the bayou.
True.
They trained the gator to hunt for them, but not eat what it hunted, so they could eat it.
Fantastic.
You guys, there is documentation of a Bill Worthington during the 1950s with a pet alligator.
Shut up.
I'm just
I hate you! I thought you were onto something. I was like, we've solved our first mystery!
Body of Mikey found in a ditch.
I mean, John Quincy had a pet alligator, so I mean, anything's possible, right? He was the 6th president.
After a little while, they put the board and the planchette back in the box and left. I was alone in the house. After what happened next, believe me, I checked every inch of the house. I play a video game for about an hour or so, and when I walked out to the dining room where we were using the board, it was out and set up on the table. That's when I checked the house. I walked back into the dining room very nervous and asked out loud, "Who got that board back out? I'm all alone?" Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move. Naturally, I turned to see what it was. My heart jumped into my throat when I saw what was the planchette moving.
No. Michael has gripped my knee. What?
My heart jumped into my throat when I saw it. It was the planchette moving. It stopped over the letter I for a second. Then it moved to the letter D, and back to the I, and then back to the D again. I-D, I-D. I still don't know why I didn't run then, but I asked, "Okay, who are you?" The planchette moved again, spelling out evil. Nope. Nope.
Bye.
Bye.
Alright,
Gotta
and that's
go.
when you burn down the house.
Also, who calls himself evil? If I'm trying to indoctrinate myself into your good graces, I'm not going to be like, it's me, I'm evil.
But that's only if you're actually evil. If you were a ghost, you would absolutely say to someone who summoned you, "I'm evil."
I would do it to you for fun.
Who has the audacity to hover over this board while it's moving on its own to spell more than 2 letters?
I'm out.
Yeah.
Bye. Have fun in the house.
86 champagne out deuces. No.
I hope you enjoy the house. It's yours now.
She's hovering over it, watching it spell out evil.
I can't wait to cover haunted houses because they're my absolute favorite thing. And my absolute favorite thing about them is that people never leave them. They're just like, well, first they tried to kill Johnny. Then the ghost came after me with a knife. And I was like, so we started sleeping in the living room. I'm like, no, leave the house. What's wrong with you?
Me watching every horror movie. Why are you leaving right now?
And they're always giant houses, so I kind of feel like it's the ghost's way of scaring off the 1%. I don't feel bad about it.
The proletariat ghosts.
Oh, God. Have fun in your giant house on the hill.
Undead of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your rattling chains.
Oh my god, it's gonna be me. I'm gonna start a ghost revolution.
The planchette moved again and spelled out evil. I grabbed the board and shoved it back into the box and ran outside to the burn bin. It was an old 55-gallon drum, and I dropped the box into it. Then I threw some other trash waiting to be burned in and lit the papers and such waiting. The box didn't even blacken. I ran as fast as I could to my dad's workshop and got the charcoal lighter and his gas can. I poured the lighter fluid over the box till it was dripping through the cardboard and lit a match and threw it in. A huge fireball shot out of the bin as the lighter fluid flashed. After the flames died down, I looked into the bottom of the bin. All I saw was a bed of ash and some cinders surrounding the board completely unharmed. I screamed out loud, terrified. It took me a few minutes to calm down and remember the gas can. I emptied it into the bin and put a big rock on top of the board that was floating in the gas. As soon as I was sure it would stay submerged, about twice the thickness of the board in the gas, I found a long branch and wrapped the end in paper to light the bin with.
Well, that's smart at least. I'm glad. After the fireball of using all the lighter fluid the first time, I'm very glad that someone has learned a lesson and found a branch.
Safety procedures.
Yes. And this is how you safely dispose of a demon.
The smell was so horrible when I lit the fire. Think gasoline and burning meat mixed with sulfur. It made me sick to my stomach. That was when I heard a scream so shrill and I guess sharp it felt like my ears would explode, and I could feel the sound in my chest. It seemed to last hours, but it couldn't have been more than a minute. After the fire went out totally and the bin cooled, I looked in and pulled out the rock. The board had completely burned, but the image of a face was burned into the bottom of the rock. That was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. Sorry. I'm sorry, Justin, but I'm going to call bullshit because you didn't submit a picture of your face rock. Pics or it did not happen.
Oh, you want the proof. You want
the
proof.
If you're claiming your evil rock has a face in it, this is real easy to show me.
That really wouldn't prove the story anyway. You either have to decide to accept the story into your heart or you don't. Because he could just have a Jesus rock with the face in it. Like,
Truth.
People find Jesus faces on waffles. Walnuts. Maybe probably walnuts too.
Then you go out and you find a face rock.
If I ever tried to burn anything and it didn't burn, I'm leaving. I feel like the solution to a lot of these is leave. The ghost lives in your house now. You don't need to live there anymore. Goodbye.
I mean, it worked in the end.
I guess, yeah, it did. It worked in the end. I feel like it's a really long story and very detailed, and I feel like it happened. I feel like it actually happened to him.
I feel like him somehow getting the other trash, makes it more believable, and I have no idea why. What's your guys' favorite submission?
That one? Like, first, it's got everything. It's got demon rocks, it's got pet alligators. Come on.
That was so specific.
It's very much like turn-by-turn detailed of like what he did and what he saw and what he heard. I would have been gone the moment that it moved to the first eye. I would have been out. It would have been over.
I think that after you would have left, but your curiosity, I know you well enough to know you would have been like, is it still doing it? Just running back?
I would have went to get somebody else and then went back to investigate. But
not
if
by
I was
yourself.
by myself, absolutely not. Nope.
That's fair. I would FaceTime somebody. It would probably be Chip.
Miranda, do you want to come over for spaghetti dinner?
Chip wouldn't.
There's a Ouija board movie.
Like, what is going on? I just needed somebody else here with me. Want to see something? No, absolutely not. I don't like where this is going. I try and FaceTime Chip. Chip doesn't pick up. I'm messaging Chip. There's a fucking demon. Deal with it.
That's what you get for having tiny demon closet in your upstairs.
Out of these rituals, which rituals would you now try, having heard about them more?
I definitely want to try the door one. I think it would be
It's
awesome.
so fun.
I like that kind of thing, that meditative, subconscious, being guided. I think it would be awesome. I would definitely try that.
I feel like Chip needs to do Bloody Mary just once. It's a rite of passage.
You probably know why, because I've told you this story before. As a child, that was the one I knew I would never, ever do, because in one of my childhood bedrooms, I had these giant mirror, doors for my closet. So my closet had these giant mirror doors, and even just if I accidentally thought the phrase Bloody Mary, like I'm on the internet and I think about it, then I'm like, I'm out of here, I need to go in the kitchen for a little while. So, Bloody Mary was the one I would never do. Now I need to do it.
Did it scare you because, the idea of doing it and then having to face your mirror, because you could have done it in a different room. Like, you could have did it in the bathroom or something, but then you would have still had to go to sleep and have the mirrors be there.
In that particular house, the bathroom connected to my room, so that wouldn't have helped. But specifically, these mirrors were so big, I'm like, she can trip coming out of the bathroom mirror. She could just walk right out of this one. She can run flailing her arms straight at me. There's nothing to stop her, and my door is on the other side. I'm dead.
I feel like that makes sense. Like, if I had large mirrors in my room, I probably wouldn't do Bloody Mary either, like, as a child.
See, I never did it at my own house. I did it in Danielle's bathroom when I was a kid. I did it in the bathroom at KOA. I can't remember where else I did it, but I know that I did it other places, like at other people's houses. I just can't think of any other specific instances of it right now.
I've done it by myself. I wonder if I should.
Well, we would take turns going into the bathroom to do it. And I remember specifically there was one trip where we just kept holding the door so you couldn't open the bathroom door at KOA to get out. But, you turn on the light and it's fine.
What rituals would you like to do, Mo?
I want to know what the hell the lady in the tower is, and then I want to do that.
Same.
And that's all for today's episode. Join us next time and keep your submissions coming, especially if they are submissions about local cryptids, as we'll be doing an episode on those near in the future. I'm Mo.
I'm Chip.
And I'm Mikey.
See you next time.
Bye.
You just listened to the Deep Dark Truth Podcast. See you next time. And remember, your local cryptids want to meet you.